Welcome to Zipadee Doo Dah Disney, the podcast where I give you my favorite tips and recommendations to help you make the most of your Disney World vacation. So sit tight, thanks for listening, and let's go on that ride. Welcome to episode 28 of Zipadee Doo Dah Disney. I'm your host, Eric Frenchman, and this episode is titled Making Genie Magic at Disney's Hollywood Studios. This episode is part 2 of my 5-episode series on using Genie Plus at Disney World for your family vacation. Here's how this episode is going to roll. First, we're going to give the ever briefest recap of Genie Plus individual lightning lanes, and we're going to remind you to determine what type of park family you are. Next, we'll talk about the park layout because that's important for planning your trip. Third, we'll talk about my favorite places to eat and drink. And finally, my strategies on how you should plan your visit to Disney's Hollywood Studios. So sit back, thanks for listening, and let's go on that ride. Okay, here's your very brief, and I mean brief, recap of Genie Plus, and the individual lightning lanes, and how it's going to work in Disney's Hollywood Studios. For more details on Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, go back and listen to episode 27. So quickly, Genie is the free version. And other than using it to track your reservations or wait times, it's completely useless. You find Genie Plus individual lightning lanes on the My Disney Experience app that you got to download from the app stores. What's Genie Plus, you say? It's the paid replacement for FastPass that allows you to basically skip the long standby lines. Now, as of this recording, it costs $15 per day per person. And if you are a hotel guest, a Disney World hotel guest, you can start making ride reservations at 7 a.m. and then roughly starting at the park opening, and then 2 hours after the park opening, you can make another one. So it's basically roughly every 2 hours, except there's some loopholes on when you could book another ride reservation based on when you took one of your Genie Plus ride reservations. So always the best bet is don't gotta read a lot of stuff. Just look at your app. It tells you when you can make another one. You could also stack rides. I held 3 at one time, and then the other really cool thing about Genie Plus as compared to the old FastPass system is that you could overlap your rides. That's right, you could book a ride reservation from 1:30 to 2:30, and then book a second ride reservation from 2 to 3. You couldn't do that in the past. Now you can figure it out. It even gives you more flexibility. What's the individual lightning lane? The other key to this? It's for an additional purchase. You get in the same line, and it costs, I don't know, some amount of money per day per ride. You can usually make up to 2 of them in one day. You really got to look at the Disney World website to figure out when you're there, which rides are part of the individual lightning lanes, and how much they're going to cost. Currently, as of this recording, at Hollywood Studios, there's only 2. It's Rise of the Resistance for $15 per day per person, and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train at $10. That's it. Those are the only 2. But be warned, you need to look at the Disney website because the pricing and the rides change, okay? When we went back at the end of December, early January, Mickey and Minnie's wasn't part of it, but Slinky Dog was. So keep that in mind. Check the website. And that's it. That's your quick recap. So before we start diving into Hollywood Studios and the map and which rides and what do I think you need to get a Genie Plus reservation for, you need to ask yourself, what type of park family are you? Are you going to be the type of family that wakes up really early in the morning, gets to the park 30 minutes before the park opening? Then Genie Plus probably isn't for you. You might want to do an individual lightning lane for Rise and Resistance because that's always got a long wait. But generally speaking, if you're going to get to the park 30 minutes before opening, do the rope drop, you probably don't need Genie Plus. Does your family like to sleep in or get breakfast? Then Genie Plus is for you. And the rest of this episode is for you. So that's all you got to know. Are you waking up early to get to the park 30 minutes before the park opening, do a rope drop? Or are you sleeping in, getting breakfast like my family likes to do now? Then Genie Plus is for you. It'll make your life a lot easier. Yeah, you got to pay for it. Yeah, that kind of sucks. It used to be free, but I think with Genie Plus, you're going to get more flexibility. All right, let's take a look at the layout of Disney's Hollywood Studios so you get a better understanding on how to navigate the park, and also why I think Disney's Hollywood Studios is now a 2-day park. Again, remember, this is for the people that are sleeping in and getting breakfast. It's a 2-day park if you want to be stress-free and fun. I think the best description of Hollywood Studios is a grandfather clock. You come in at the entrance and you're coming down the base of the grandfather clock, and that's Hollywood Boulevard, or the base of the clock. There are only 3 things of interest on the boulevard. There's shopping on either side. There's a fuel rod station on the right-hand side. What's a fuel rod station? You could buy, well, we bought them years ago, but I think it's like $30. You got a rechargeable fuel rod and all the attachments to plug into all sorts of different types of phones. And you're like, $30? That sounds like a lot of money. Might be 20. I don't remember anymore because I haven't bought it, like I said, in years. But what you get to do is when you're run out of power in that battery pack, you just go to another station and swap it for free. I've been doing it for like 6 years. For 5 years. It's awesome. Anyway, fuel rod station's on the right. And then, of course, there's Starbucks. Once you get to the end of the base, you're going to come to the main stage area, where once upon a time, kids, pre-COVID, is where you would get autographs from characters. There'd be a main stage. They used to do like this little cute little Star Wars movie clip with some Star Wars characters and fireworks. But that's gone post-COVID. Anyway, at 5 o'clock on our imaginary clock is Sunset Boulevard. But before we start walking down the Sunset Boulevard, on the left-hand side is one of my favorite restaurants anywhere in Disney World. It's the Brown Derby. We'll come back to the Brown Derby later. But anyway, now we're walking down Sunset Boulevard, and then there's some spots for food and some snack options on the left-hand side, and then there's some more shopping, and then you walk a little bit further down. It's Beauty and the Beast, the stage. It's a cool little Broadway show, little mini Broadway show of Beauty and the Beast, and further down, right in front of you, is the Tower of Terror, and to the left is the Rock and Roll Roller Coaster. It's Rock and Roller Coaster, yeah. Anyway, a little bit past that is the Lightning McQueen show. And that's where I come to my first tip of the day. Well, I actually had some other tips earlier, but first tip down here is that Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster are very popular rides and can have long wait times. It's also, unfortunately, kind of directly opposite from Galaxy's Edge. So that's a key thing to remember. The Hollywood Studios is not a huge park, so you can kind of crisscross it, but just keep that in mind. Galaxy's Edge is way on the other side, directly opposite of it, practically directly opposite. Why is Siri jumping in on my podcast? That's really annoying. No, Siri, I don't need you to find anything. Whoops. Oh, that almost turned her on again. Anyway, back to the episode. The other key thing to remember about Tower of Terror is that, remember this, Tower of Terror is usually better on an empty stomach, not a full stomach. So it's not a good idea to do it right after you eat. All 4 of these, so Beauty and the Beast, Lightning McQueen, Tower of Terror, and Rock and Roller Coaster are all on Genie Plus, but you might need them for Tower and Rock and Roller Coaster. Okay? Tower and Rock and Roller are different types of rides. Okay, one's the cool drop-down elevator, one's a standard roller coaster. Both rides have a decent wait time. But there's one thing you need to know about both of them. When you have a lightning lane, and you have a standby. On both of them, and like all Disney rides, they sort of merge at the end. So when you see the posted standby wait times, you're usually calculating, oh, that ride says 45 minutes, but if I got a lightning lane, I won't have to wait the 45 minutes. That's not right, because what happens is the rides sort of merge together. I mean, the standby line and the lightning lanes merge. So then there's usually a little wait time after that. So on Rock and Roll Roller Coaster, the wait time's usually not that bad once everybody merges. So if you see a 45-minute wait time for Tower of Terror, it's not going to be 45 minutes. It's probably going to be a little bit less than that because you got the merge. And remember, Lisa would argue with me, I don't know if that makes any sense. You're comparing it to what you would do on the lightning lane. So at a certain point, they both merge. I hope that makes sense. If not, let me know in the comments. Again, Tower of Terror, talking about the wait times, once they merge, there's a pre-show. It's kind of cool. It's long. And then you even got a longer wait when you're boarding the elevators. So if you see a 45-minute or an hour wait time for Tower of Terror, my experience is most of the time, that's a solid number. Generally speaking, unless you're a super early riser, you're going to end up using a Genie Plus for either the Rock and Roll or the Tower of Terror in one of your days. Just the way it's going to work out. Beauty Beast, as I said earlier, decent show, more enjoyable with your kids. Don't need a Fast Pass reservation. Sorry, a Genie Plus reservation for it. All right, for this podcast, let's assume you head back towards the center of our clock and you come to the beautiful Chinese Theater, which features a newer ride, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train. I have never, ever gotten a lightning lane for this ride. Right now, it's an individual lightning lane purchase, which means you got to pay for it separately than your other Genie Plus reservations. Personally, I wouldn't pay for this ride. Not at all. The both times that I've ridden it, and both times have been the busiest time of year between Christmas and New Year's, the wait time was around 45 minutes. Believe it or not, it's really not that bad of a wait. In fact, on our last trip, we were waiting on our Rise of the Resistance lightning lane reservation, but of course, the ride was down as usual. Rock and Roll was down. So instead of just putzing around and just trying to kill time, we stood on the line for Runaway Train. It was 45 minutes. It was an easy wait. We got that. Then we ended up going back over the Rise. Anyway, I've never gotten a lightning lane or fast pass reservation for the Runaway Train. You don't need it. Save your money. If it ever ends up back on Genie Plus instead of the individual lightning lane purchase, then maybe it might be worth a Genie Plus reservation, but I wouldn't pay extra for it. To the right of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train is the Animation Courtyard, which had the Voyage of the Little Mermaid, but that's currently closed. There's also like this Disney Junior Playhouse and a Star Wars launch bay, which had all these cool Star Wars gifts, character greetings, and short films. But that's closed too. I mean, if it's reopened, I would go to it because I'm a Star Wars nut. But otherwise, unless you got little kids, there's nothing to do here right now. So we're going to skip that area. Back over to the center of the clock. If you think about 7 o'clock on a clock, you're going to see Echo Lake, this cool little man-made lake, which has some decent quick service food options. I don't really like the sit-down dining there. There's a 50s Primetime Cafe. It's just okay. I've had hit or miss at it. But anyway, that's where it is. But the cool thing back here is the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, which is a great show. I've seen it a billion times and I never get tired of it. It basically walks through the original Indiana Jones, the Lost Ark, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It talks about how they did stunts in that show. It's a lot of fun. It's got live actors. It's great. I've seen it a bunch of times. I've always enjoyed it. And guess what? You don't need a Genie Plus for it either. I mean, if you want to waste one, you can, but you don't need one. Coming up and around past the Indiana Jones show, you're going to see this little movie theater, right, which is showing a Mickey and Minnie animated short film called Vacation Fun. There's also Frozen Sing-Along. Thank God my kids are old enough. I didn't really have to deal with Frozen Sing-Alongs. You might have to put that one on your stop if you have little kids. But around the corner from there, carrying up from there, is Star Tours. A super popular ride. I think it's a marvel in Disney Imagineering, and it's Star Wars. But my one big beef with it is that I get nauseous from it. So ignoring my queasy feelings, you do need a Genie Plus for it. I would not prioritize it as a Genie Plus ride because I think there are way better rides in the park. But I found that standby line is packed. It's windy. It moves slowly. I can't stand that standby line. So opposed to Mickey and Minnie's or even the Rock and Roll roller coaster, I don't recommend standing by on that line unless it's under 30 minutes. Save yourself some time. Use a Genie Plus reservation on it. Okay, let's head back over to the Chinese theater, and we're standing in front of there. Don't do this, but just for the podcast, you got to make a decision. You got to decide whether you're going to go towards Toy Story Land or you're going towards Galaxy's Edge. Okay, Galaxy's Edge is going to be at, say, let me see if I got my clocks right, 10 o'clock, and let's say that Toy Stories is going to be at like 2 o'clock. So for this episode, we're heading towards Galaxy's Edge. So you're going to swing back around, and what you're going to see are the remnants of the old streets of New York, which was a really cool area of the old Hollywood studios. And a little bit further back is the Muppet Vision 3D show. Guess what? It's a show mostly using 3D, and as the name suggests, it's the Muppets. It's cute. It's fun for the whole family. I like it, but you don't need to prioritize a Genie Plus for it. If you want to waste one later on in the day, that's great. But don't prioritize the Muppet Vision 3D. If you got to wait a half hour for it, then wait a half hour for it, but don't prioritize it. Oh, before we get past the remnants of the streets of New York, right on the right-hand side is one of my favorite lunch spots in Hollywood Studios. It's sit down. It's the Sci-Fi Diner. Make a reservation. Sit in their cars. Watch some old sci-fi films. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but that's a good place to get a sit-down lunch with a reservation. Now, you continue walking past the Muppet 3D area, the Muppet Show, and you're going to come into Galaxy's Edge. Dun, dun, dun. And on the left-hand side is Rise of the Resistance. It's a 25-minute awesome ride. You 100% need to purchase an individual lightning lane for it, okay? In fact, if you're staying at a Disney hotel, which we're assuming at 7 a.m. the morning, you want to go to Hollywood Studios and go on Rise of the Resistance, you prioritize this individual lightning lane first. And then you fill in your first Genie Plus with the Millennium Falcon ride. That's what you do. It's a tip. Do it. The only other way to get on Rise of the Resistance is to try and wake up in the morning and hit the park opening 30 minutes before park opening, do the rope drop, and then you're standing in line. I don't like that idea. Even if you're an early morning riser and you want to hit some other rides, that's better. Make an individual lightning lane purchase for it. The other big ride in Galaxy's Edge is the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, or it's a Smuggler's Run Millennium Falcon. It doesn't even matter. It's the Millennium Falcon ride. It's a Genie Plus. Get it. Get the Genie Plus. I have waited for this ride back before they even had, when they took away fast passes during, the COVID year last year. I have waited almost 2 hours for this ride. It's not a bad wait. It's not great. Get the Genie Plus ride reservation for it. So again, Rise of the Resistance should be your very first reservation the day you're going to go to Galaxy's Edge, and a Millennium Falcon should be second. Forget about trying to get Slinky Dog on your Star Wars day. When you go in at 7 a.m. to get your individual lightning lane purchase for Rise, Slinky Dog will either be gone already or be very late in the day. And that's why I suggest that unless you're going to wake up really early in the morning, do Hollywood Studios in one day. Hollywood Studios is now a 2-day park. Okay? One other thing I want to point out before we leave the Galaxy's Edge area, the food and drink are Star Wars themed in the area. The food is average. That's why I think you're better off going somewhere else for lunch, unless you want to be totally immersed in Star Wars. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for food options, decent food options, not my favorite place to get food. It's okay because I like the Star Wars thing, but maybe some other people in your ride aren't Star Wars nerds. They're not going to like it. Go somewhere else in the park. Now, there is an entrance to Toy Story Land in the back of Galaxy's Edge. But we're not going to do that. We're going to swing back over to the front of the Chinese theater. We're going to go now 2 o'clock. We're going to go towards Toy Story Land. Again, remember, we're on our make-believe grandfather clock. As you're walking towards Toy Story Land, you're going to see a little exhibit on the right-hand side called Walt Disney Presents. You don't need a Genie Plus for it, so don't worry about it. However, it's a great exhibit of Walt and Roy Disney and the building of the parks. It's got cool artifacts. It's got cool exhibits. It's like a little mini museum before you go, we're going to be bored. You're not going to be bored. But again, don't prioritize this. You need some time in between your rides, or maybe you ate lunch and you got a tower reservation. You want to kill some time before you go on tower. This is a great thing to do. It's awesome. There's also a little movie in the back. I highly suggest it. And it's air conditioning. So if it's a hot day, go place to cool off. Okay, swinging back around, on the left-hand side, there's a great place to get coffee, snacks, and drinks. And right before you go into Toy Story Land, you might see something about a incredible celebration. But yeah, you get it. They're going to talk about the Incredibles. Unfortunately, that little area's been closed. I don't know what they're doing with it, but when we were there back in December, January, so January 2022, not open. So don't worry about it. Keep walking straight down. Actually, also right there, there's some decent bathrooms. They're usually not too crowded because everybody's heading into Toy Story Land. So you could need a decent little bathroom break. It's right there, right before you get into Toy Story Land. There are only 3 rides in Toy Story Land. Slinky Dog, which when you first enter in, it's going to be on your right. You can't miss. It's an awesome roller coaster. On your left-hand side, a little further down, is Toy Story Mania. And past Slinky Dog, on the right-hand side, is Alien Swirling Saucers. When it comes to Genie Plus and Toy Story Land, you absolutely need one for Slinky Dog. In fact, that's why I think Hollywood Studios is a 2-day park. Slinky Dog should be the very first reservation you do on your non-Star Wars day. Get Slinky Dog first at 7 a.m. when you're not trying to do Star Wars Land. Toy Story Mania is a great ride. You can get a Genie Plus reservation for it, but if the wait time is around 45 minutes, take the standby line. You can also get another Genie Plus later on and do the ride twice. We do that all the time. It's a lot of fun. It's a 3D shooting arcade with the Toy Story Mania characters. Could it be better? It's also a very easy wait. It's mostly indoors, so it's mostly AC, and there's plenty of cool Toy Story Mania picture props and, walls. You'll get it. It's a decent wait. So if it's 45 minutes or less, take the standby line. Don't forget, too, at the end, like I mentioned earlier on Tower of Terror and other rides, the individual the Fast Pass or Lightning Lane. Try this again. The Lightning Lane and the standby lines merge, and then you got a little bit of a shorter wait, but then you got to go over these steps and then down to the loading area. So you usually got another 5 to 10 minutes after that. So if you see a 45-minute wait time, it's actually about 35 minutes of pure standby time when you're making up your decision. So again, 45 minutes or less, take the standby time. Alien Saucers is just an upgraded teacup ride with a Toy Story theme. It's okay. My advice to you is I wouldn't wait more than 30 minutes for it. And oddly enough, this ride and Slinky Dog sort of go hand in hand together. So if there's a long wait on Slinky Dog, a lot of people spill out and go on the saucer ride. So that one has a longer wait time than it should. Kind of like what you see in Animal Kingdom when you're doing Flights of Passage. A lot of people spill off into the river ride that's right over there, the Na'vi River ride. So those two go hand in hand. So same thing. Alien Saucer and Slinky Dog go hand in hand. There's a long wait time at Slinky Dog. There's an abnormally long, not worth the wait time for Alien Saucers. I also would not use a Genie Plus there unless you want to make it a throwaway. Now, before we leave Toy Story Land, there was a cool quick service spot called Woody's Lunchbox. It's a decent spot for a quick service meal if you're hungry. We've done it. It's okay. Speaking of food, here's our next section. When it comes to Hollywood Studios, I only have 2 favorites. I've already mentioned them. It's the Brown Derby and it's the Sci-Fi Diner. The Brown Derby is a signature restaurant at Disney World. So it's one of their top restaurants. We like to prioritize dinner there. We don't do it every trip. They also have a cool little outdoor seating. Sometimes you can get a little bistro out there. You can get lunch. It's a good spot. It's got good drinks, got good food. I never miss their chopped salad. It's a must order. It's a chopped Cobb salad. It's a must order. The Sci-Fi Diner, which I mentioned earlier, features burgers and sandwiches, fried stuff, like their fried pickles are awesome, and milkshakes. Of course, it's got alcoholic drinks for the adults. You sit in the car, you watch old clips of early sci-fi movies. It's a blast. I highly recommend that for a sit-down lunch. So it's going to take some time out of your day. So generally, my rule is Brown Derby for dinner, Sci-Fi for lunch. There are two other places that I can basically recommend. One's Olga's Cantina in Galaxy's Edge, and the other one is the ABC Commissary, kind of on your way into the Star Tours area or into the Streets of New York area. You'll see it before you start heading into Star Tours. You'll see ABC Commissary. ABC Commissary is your typical quick service spot at Disney World. The food is always decent. It's good quality, and they have a good selection. So if you're going to do quick service, that's your best bet. Olga's Cantina most likely requires a dining reservation. It's a great Star Wars themed bar. There are some limited food selections. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're going to Olga's for a meal. You're not. Don't do it. They got some snacks. They're okay. You're not filling up on this. It's not satisfying your hunger pains. Most of the time you're standing anyway. Go to Olga's for your immersive Star Wars experience and get some drinks. And that's it. Those are my favorite spots to eat at Hollywood Studios. So what's my strategy for Hollywood Studios? Going on the rides? Making it fun? Simple. It's a 2-day park. Remember, it's a 2-day park now. If you want to minimize your waits, maximize your fun, and believe it or not, have maximum flexibility, do it in 2 days. I don't care what order you do these 2 days in. I'm going to start off day one of Star Wars. You got to do Star Wars first, right? At 7 a.m., pay for an individual Lightning Lane and Rise of the Resistance. Try and target late morning. Then, with your first Genie Plus reservation after you get your individual Lightning Lane purchase, go grab a Genie Plus for the Millennium Falcon. Try and get them right next to each other if possible, even if they're overlapping a little bit. The key for Rise of Resistance is you want to get it in the morning, because that ride breaks down a lot, and people just standing around waiting. Pay for it, get in the morning, you'll get prioritized later on in the day if it's down for a while. That happened to us. We ended up waiting about 45 minutes. Yes, we ended up waiting with an individual Lightning Lane purchase later in the day because it was down that long. Anyway, give yourself plenty of time to get on it because it will break down. It always breaks down. Get it early in the morning. Again, just like I just said, get the Falcon right around the Rise of Resistance and get to the park around park opening. Take your time. Get some coffee. Get a breakfast snack. Get a donut. Whatever. And then try and do one of these 3 rides. Runaway Train, Rock and Roll, or Tower of Terror. Do them, especially if they're under 45 minutes. Maybe you get lucky. You could do 2 out of the 3. Get them. Okay? Then 2 hours after the park opening, let's assume a 9 a.m. opening at 11 a.m., you should be able to make another Genie Plus reservation. So either do Tower of Terror, Rock and Roll, Toy Story. Do that kind of after lunch, okay? Basically, get the other Genie Plus reservation for what you weren't able to do with standby on in the morning. That's a good way of stacking your rides. So try and get your Galaxy's Edge stuff in the morning. Go eat lunch, and then you're on your way. You should be able to keep making Genie Plus reservations every 2 hours after 11 a.m. mark, but keep every once in a while, when you get off a ride that you had a reservation for, check your app. You might be able to make another one. I've held 4 at one time, okay? After that, try and target any other rides you want after you've gotten all these big rides out of the way, or maybe fill it in with Indiana Jones or Beauty and the Beast. Now let's skip to day 2. Day 2 for us would be Toy Story Day. At 7 a.m., you get in and you make a Slinky Dog reservation. That's probably going to be a Genie Plus. When we went there between Christmas and New Year's, it was an individual Lightning Lane, so I was able to make another ride reservation, Genie Plus at 7. If it's a Genie Plus, you can't. You got to wait till park opening. Make another one. Get a Toy Story Mania. Now you got Toy Story Mania, and now you got Slinky Dog. Try and get him around the same time so you're hitting the same area. And then just keep repeating. Once you go on a ride, check to see if you can make another ride reservation. If you can't and you're stacking, you should be able to make another one at around 11 a.m. Go on the other rides. Try and target the other rides that you didn't get on the day before, your day one at Hollywood Studios. Get it again. Same thing as day one. Get to the park around park opening and repeat the same strategy. Go on. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train, Tower of Terror, whatever you missed on the first day, get them on this day. And then again, 11 a.m., make another Genie Plus ride reservation. Just keep filling in for things that you missed. And then, if you've done everything you wanted with your Genie Plus, start filling in with other shows, The Muppets, Lady McQueen, parades, pictures, whatever you want to do. There's tons of things to do in Hollywood Studios, especially when you spread it out over 2 days. More fun, more flexibility. You can even throw in a sci-fi lunch that day. So you're sitting there taking some time. Day 2 should be stress-free, lots of fun, very flexible, probably your best day in all the parks. Do what I do. Get the Star Wars stuff out of the way in day 1. Take care of everything else in day 2. If you want to go back to Star Wars, go back to Star Wars. But this is how you make Hollywood Studios a fun park to visit. Do it over 2 days. You won't regret it. But that's it for episode 28 of Zipadee Doo Dah Disney. You got a recap of Genie Plus, individual lightning lanes. We did a quick tour of Hollywood Studios and how the park works, where you need to get your Genie Plus and your individual lightning lane purchases. I gave you some of my favorite spots to dine and drink, and then also my foolproof plan for visiting Hollywood Studios. And that's a wrap. Episode 29, we're going to take a look at the Animal Kingdom and how to use Genie Plus. So thanks for listening, and thanks for going on this ride.